Hi, this is Erin Harrison coming to you from Cloud Expo at the Javits Center in New York City, and I'm joined today by Prerit Garg, who's the president and co-founder of Symform. Welcome, Prerit.
Thank you, Erin.
Thanks for joining me. So talk to us a little bit about what the company does and what you're hoping to accomplish while you're at the show.
Sure. We're a cloud storage company. We're a little out of the box that we, instead of using data centers, we actually aggregate storage across the internet. So we are out here basically getting our message across to the market, to a lot of the other vendors here, that there is a better way of storing data that is much more scalable and much more economical than using massive data centers. So that's sort of our reason for being here.
Okay, great. Any sort of adoption trends that you're seeing in the market, whether it's enterprise size or small and medium-sized businesses, what sort of trends are you guys seeing?
So some interesting trends that we are seeing is that data is growing at a massive rate, right? We're expected to get 44-fold increase over the next 5 years in data growth, right? So the digitization of information is a huge trend. And what you're also seeing is the data is becoming very valuable to people. You potentially now have digital photographs, right? So everybody is storing their memories, and businesses are seeing the same trend. They have a lot more data to store and protect. Right? And some interesting things there is that as data is growing, people are finding it harder and harder to find ways of how to manage and protect it. Right? And the converse trend is also happening, which is when you look at data centers are very expensive. Power is becoming a dominant factor in cost of actually operating data centers. Just to sort of give you a trend, 2% of the North American power now goes to power data centers. So when you look at that's huge, right? You can power cities with that kind of power. So we've kind of looked at these trends and these problems, and we've come up with this idea that storage, while data is growing, storage capacity is growing as well. Right? It was 3 years ago you could buy a terabyte for $80. Now you can buy 2 terabytes for $80. Soon you will be able to buy 4 terabytes for $80. So actual capacity is keeping in line with people's data growth, except storing all that data in data centers is very expensive because power ends up dominating. So we've sort of decided we're going to change the paradigm. With all the storage that's available in everybody's houses and businesses, we're saying, what if we aggregated all this available storage into a massive distributed storage system? We would be able to store this data much more economically, much more securely, right? Because it's not sitting in one location, and thereby have a much better, more scalable system.
Now, cloud adoption is certainly on the rise. However, IT decision makers still cite security as a top-level concern. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest concerns is loss of control. When you think about IT people, they live in the world where they want to be in charge of their data and under their control. So one of the sort of interesting notions is that they look at the cloud as solving their problems, but at the same time, losing control is something that they worry about every day, because it's like losing their job if you have loss of data or loss of application and service. Right? So that's kind of impacting the adoption. And so I think part of the job of us as well as the entire industry is to get people comfortable with this idea that actually leveraging service providers can make their lives better.
And what about from a cost savings perspective? Can you address that a little bit?
Absolutely. Actually, some very interesting data points there, right? There's a lot of efficiencies from a cost perspective of leveraging cloud providers, right? You typically look at enterprises, they have to over-provision in their data centers because they have to sort of manage the demand, and you have to have a huge capital outlay. Whereas leveraging cloud players like us, we can help in terms of the cost structures, because what they have to do is now they only pay on operational cost basis. As their data is growing, their cost structures growing, not because they have to build out huge capacity up front. Right? So it can be a huge economic saving in terms of their capital cost structures.
And finally, before we wrap up, there's a lot of cloud storage vendors emerging in the market. How does Symform differentiate?
Yeah, we're a little out of the box because we actually don't use expensive data centers. What we are doing is we're saying local storage is so cheap and we can aggregate it across the internet So we can turn around and turn this local storage that's sitting latent in people's houses and small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and aggregate that into a massive distributed storage system. So it's like building a virtual data center without having to put brick and mortar into a place. So you're leveraging that economics rather than creating more power usage, more land space, right, and things like that. So it's a different way of doing it.
And any advice that you could give to the market out there before we wrap up?
I think what I would say is that some of the things you said, look for real true economic improvements, right? Just don't go because it's a trend. Care about data protection, right? Because data is becoming very valuable. And stay abreast with the market because new technologies and new approaches are coming constantly and people are finding new ways of doing that. So those would be my advice as you look at the market. There's a lot of buzz and there's a lot of fluff in the market, so you have to sort of find what you're really looking for.
Okay, great. Thanks, Parrot.